So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over how you can refine this view a little bit. First by showing you a couple different methods how you can look around, looking up, down, moving the camera up and down, and then also how we can apply some shadows and lighting here to make this a little bit easier to read. So the first thing I'm going to show you are some camera tricks. Now if you don't have your view cropped, if you don't have your crop region on, you can just use the middle mouse button and you can sort of, move up and down, move left and right. And if you let go, say here, you can see that the eye elevation, the target elevation, and the camera parameters change. And you can type actual values in here, but I think a very good starting point is to, it should start in the middle if you followed the sort of first tutorial method where you take the section and then you turn it into a perspective. This should be about the middle of your building. So my building's about 80 feet, so that's why you have, I'm about right in the center there. But it might be better to, go down and go from a lower vantage point. So you can actually type this value in. So if you know your first floor is at 20 feet, you can actually type a value here. But then we can't really see everything, right? So this is where the navigation tool is really helpful. If you don't want to type let's say a higher eye elevation, you can see now we're looking up. You can use the navigation wheel here, and you can use the look tool. You can move around, and you'll see that the eye elevation will change. But you can also move the camera up or down, and then you can see it's changing where we're looking down the building. Now, if you do have your crop region on, you can see if I use the middle mouse button, it just moves the drawing around, and so that's why you have to just be careful, what things are on, and if you want to keep it cropped, just make sure you pay attention to these buttons instead to help you refine your view. So once you have that all taken care of, the next step is to go ahead and turn your shadows on. And the way you do this is, the easiest way is to just go down here on this sort of, this toolbar and hit the sphere with the shadow under it to turn your shadows on. Now, your light might not look the same as this. It just depends on what your settings are. And to change your lighting settings, I think the easiest way is to go and click the sun and click sun settings. And here we can actually choose lighting, so this is not using any sort of global azimuth and altitude, but we can put the azimuth and altitude of a light. So if this light is a little bit too low, we can change the altitude here to something like 45 degrees. And we can hit apply. We can also uncheck this relative to view, and that's going to change it based on the view cube. So this is coming on the top right of the view cube. So just keep that in mind if you're if you want to think about this in a north, south, east, west sort of view, then you might want to uncheck that relative to view. But let's see what the top left looks like here. So this is relative to the view. This is like literally what we're looking at. It's coming from the top left of the screen over here. And I know this is north on my model, which means that this building would probably have to be in the southern hemisphere or very close to the equator for this sort of azimuth and altitude to happen. So just keep that in mind, that this wouldn't be a real lighting situation. Now, if you do want to add a real lighting situation, you can go to the Still tab, and you can actually add your location. So I think I talked about this very early on in the project. You can change this location to wherever you are in the world, and the method is a little bit buggy. You kind of have to type an address in here, and then it puts you over there, and then you have to click a weather station. So just make sure you're this actually changes when you hit OK. But what we can do is we can change the date and the time, or we can choose something like a winter or summer solstice. So if I go choose the summer solstice and hit apply, now at 12 noon in the summer solstice, the sun's going to be basically directly overhead. It's a little bit, the altitude's not directly 90 degrees, so you're getting a little bit of shadows like you can see here. But this isn't great. It's all in shadow, so I'm going to try another one. We're going to go to the spring equinox here. And this is a lot better. Now I get a little bit of light inside of the building, but rather than changing the actual angle of the sun, I'm going to change the time so the sun is starting to set. I'm going to change this to 2:30, hit apply, and now I have a good amount of light coming into my building. I kind of like the play of the shadows here that show you all of these beams that line up. But you might want to choose a few different situations that look best for your building, depending on where you are in the world as well. So I'm going to hit OK here. We're going to go on to the next thing to change, which is actually the sort of intensity of these shadows. So to change that, I would go down here under the Visual Style box, and then instead of changing the visual style, we're still in consistent colors, by the way, you want to change the graphics display option. So up here we have a few parameters we can change to help our shadows out. And if you have a good PC, like if this is running pretty smoothly for you, I would recommend trying this anti-aliasing out. It smooths the lines out a lot, which might not look like a whole bit of difference from your end, but from my end it looks a lot better. It does tend to slow your system down a little bit, but it sort of gets rid of a little bit of that Revit sort of, aliased look. But anyways, to go down to change the shadows, we actually don't want to go to shadows, we want to go to lighting, and we could turn this shadows slider down. So I'll probably change this to like a 30, and that's a little bit too low, so I'm going to change this probably to like a 35. I'm going to hit OK. If it gets too low, you can barely see the shadows and it becomes a little bit too much. What could help this out though is if you actually turn your ambient shadows on. So ambient occlusion is like an Arctic rendered mode in Rhino. And if I turn that on and hit apply, you can see that there's a lot more sort of discrepancy between the corners. And I think you should try and find a balance between the sort of darkness of this shadow and the ambient occlusion and the lightness of the shadow, of the normal shadow. So I'll probably bring this back up to about a 30 there. And that looks a little bit better. So here it is without ambient occlusion. You can see that this is starting to get flat. These corners are looking a little bit flat. And if I turn it on, it might look a little bit better. But this is up to you. This is a personal choice. You're just going to have to tinker around with a lot of these settings, with the lighting. Maybe you're dipping a little bit lower since you don't have, as large of an atrium, or maybe there's all catwalks there, so you want to get a little bit more light into your building. But that's up to you, and those are just some ways you can create a drawing that's sort of between a diagram and a render, just using a few modifications to the shadows.